Hello, this is Agent Shepard from Springtime Nations, and I'm here to talk about something topical, and that is that with the outbreak of the Russia-Ukrainian war in February 2023, libertarians have been in a somewhat uncomfortable position in being supporters both of non-intervention by their own government and by multiple other governments in the situation, but also, I would hope, the vast majority of us being sympathetic to the cause of Ukrainian national liberation and self-defense. Libertarians have the right to claim a very long and storied tradition of supporting non-intervention, and our ownership and management of antiwar.com, which has been the premier non-interventionist news site since the Kosovo War in 1999, speaks to that. Understandably, the libertarian movement, especially that part of the libertarian movement which focuses on non-intervention, Scott Horton, an editor of antiwar.com, Ron Paul and the Ron Paul Liberty Report, his co-host Daniel McAdams, Angela McArdle in her organization of the Rage Against the War Machine rally in Washington, D.C. in 2024. All of these have come under fire for being seen as Russian promoted and caping for Russia and not caring about Ukraine. One line of attack that critics will use is that a libertarian who goes on, for example, news outlets such as Press TV or Russia Today or Al Jazeera, all sites funded by authoritarian governments, to criticize American foreign and domestic policy is engaging in a form of double standards. After all, who is Russia to lecture us about our humanitarian rights record? Or Iran? Or the Gulf states? None of these people have the moral high ground to lecture anyone, and libertarians who seek to give these organizations and these states any kind of intellectual cover for what they're doing should be seen at best as naive puppets, and at worst, actual agents against the free peoples of the world. This is a pretty serious charge, especially against someone like, for example, Ron Paul, who has frequently appeared on non-American media criticizing our foreign policy. So what's going on here? Why does Ron Paul go on Russia Today, whereas the Russian Libertarian Party, for example, is an extreme anti-Russian force and brooks no preferential treatment for their homeland's government? In fact, quite the contrary. Is Ron Paul wrong, and is the Libertarian Party of Russia right? Are both wrong? Let's try to think about this for a second. Both Ron Paul and libertarians in Russia believe in a free society, and a free society does not invade other countries. That's it. Ron Paul does not defend the Russian state. Angela McArdle does not defend the Russian state, because Angela McArdle and Ron Paul do not defend states, period. The strategy that anti-interventionists in the West take by going on non-Western news sites to talk about liberty and to talk about the fault of the American empire, especially in the case, for example, of Press TV and Russia Today, where these are English-speaking channels where they can reach people all around the world, is not just being able to spread the message of liberty, which is a laudable goal, but also to undermine our state's conceit that any kind of American or Western intervention is merely an exhibition of the popular will, and that there are no credible voices within our society which are against these grand crusades for freedom, such as, for example, the Iraq War, or the Vietnam War, or Korea, and we can go on and on down the dark paths that the American empire has gone down, and the people that it has murdered, both its own citizens and others. In the title, I use the imagery of a tug of war. I think this makes a useful analogy because both Ron Paul's and the Libertarian Party of Russia may be working towards the same goal by weakening the pull on each side of our respective countries. The Libertarian Party of Russia should seek, and is seeking, to weaken the pull of war, for war, in Russia against countries outside of Russia, like Ukraine. Our goal, on this side of the Atlantic, is to weaken the pull for war by our governments. And both of our goals will be achieved when peace breaks out and when peace is maintained. The libertarian position on foreign policy, being anti-war, means that we need to work tirelessly in our own societies to make sure war is never seen as a correct option or politics by other means. I hope it becomes clear that when Daniel McAdams or Ron Paul or Scott Horton or anyone, myself, goes on a non-Western media site to propound the ideas of freedom but also non-intervention, that this is not because we want Russian soldiers to shell and to murder and to plunder. Quite the opposite. We are working to have a consistent ethic that applies to all countries. And this is also why we don't attack people who live in Russia or Iran or China or Turkey, who have the much more heroic task before them of speaking out in a society where they are indeed at risk of bodily harm by voicing the truth about the state, about aggression, and about pointless wars that go on forever and kill innocent people while elites manage to get by just fine. Foreign intervention is never the answer, not morally or historically. Long live peace, and may 1,000 flowers bloom.